Marcus Wade was 41 years old when he came home to find his daughter sitting on the kitchen floor, not crying anymore, but in the specific quiet that comes after a child has been crying long enough to run out of sound. Lily was 7. She had a small wrapped parcel in her lap that she was holding with both hands, the way a child holds something they are afraid to set down. The house was immaculate in the way houses are when something has been removed from them. Vanessa was in the living room, on her phone, composed in the particular way she composed herself after a decision she had already finished making. Marcus stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at his daughter and understood, without asking, that Claire was gone. What he did not yet understand was why Vanessa had removed the one person in the house who had been keeping accurate records of her Tuesday mornings. He would understand 3 weeks later. By then, it would be too late for Vanessa to change what Claire had written down. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The kitchen was too quiet in the mornings now. Marcus had not noticed, until it was absent, the specific quality of sound that had lived in that kitchen for 2 years. The low radio. The organized movement between the counter and the stove. Lily's voice asking something, and being answered in the direct, patient way Claire answered everything. He sat with his coffee the morning after and noticed the silence the way you notice a load-bearing wall that has been removed. Not loudly, just in the sudden sense that the structure of the room is different, and you are not yet certain what it means for the rest of the building. Marcus Wade was not a man who had ever confused quiet with peace. He had grown up in Savannah, Georgia, the son of a man who poured concrete for 32 years, and a mother who kept the accounts for a small electrical supply company and could tell you, without looking, what anything in the warehouse cost and where it sat. They were people who understood that the distance between what something appeared to be and what it actually was could be measured precisely if you took the time to look. He had taken the time. It had served him. He had started his own architectural firm at 31. He had designed and built it in the same sequence he built everything. No debt taken on before the revenue justified it. No hire made before the work required it. No decision rushed past the point where he understood all its consequences. Wade Architecture and Design now had 22 employees, a project backlog of 14 months, and a reputation in the mid-Atlantic region for buildings that did exactly what they were designed to do for longer than anyone expected. He designed things intended to outlast the people who ordered them. He was that kind of person. He had met Vanessa at a firm event 6 years ago. She was coordinating the venue, precise, socially fluent, with an eye for the specific details that made a room feel deliberate. He had been impressed. He had not, at the time, known that what he was watching was a performance built for an audience of people who could provide what she needed next. He had extended trust past the evidence. That was his flaw, and he had known it about himself for a long time without ever fully accounting for its cost. Lily was from his first relationship. She was 7 and had her mother's eyes and his manner. Quiet, attentive, precise in the way of children who have learned that the world responds to noticing. She had loved Claire from the first week. Not the performed affection children offer to adults they are supposed to like, but the real thing, the kind that makes a child reach for someone's hand without thinking, that makes them save their observations all day to share at dinner. Marcus had watched that develop over 2 years and understood, without examining it too directly, that what Claire gave Lily was something his marriage had stopped providing. The quality of full, unhurried attention. Vanessa had fired Claire that morning in the kitchen while Lily was at the table eating breakfast. She had not given significant reason. She had said, in the level tone she used for decisions already made, that the arrangement was no longer working, that she had found the fit unsuitable, and that Claire's last paycheck would be processed by end of week. Claire had said nothing for a moment. She had looked not at Vanessa, but at Lily. She had set down the dish towel. She had folded it in thirds and placed it on the counter with the same careful placement she gave everything. She had gone upstairs to the room she kept her things in. She had come down with a bag over one shoulder and a small wrapped parcel that she crouched to hand to Lily. She said, "For Tuesday. Don't open it until." Lily nodded. Then Claire had looked at Vanessa once. The look of a person taking the complete measure of something and deciding not to say it aloud, and walked out the front door. The door had not slammed. That was the part that stayed with Marcus when Lily described it later. The door had not slammed. Vanessa was already back on her phone when he arrived. He looked at her from the kitchen doorway for a moment, the particular composure, the slight elevation of the jaw that meant she had done something she believed was hers to do and had no interest in discussing it. He looked at her the way he looked at a structural drawing when something was off, not with emotion, but with the specific, quiet attention of a man cataloging where the load would now go. He did not argue. He picked up Lily and held her for a while. He said nothing to Vanessa that evening. He went to his office and sat for a long time looking at nothing in particular. He noticed that he did not feel angry at losing Claire. He felt the particular grief of a man who has watched something honest leave a space it should have been allowed to stay in. That grief was the cleaner and more clarifying of the two things he felt. The other thing, the slow, accumulating recognition of what Vanessa's composure had revealed, he set aside to examine when he had the full picture. 2 years earlier, Marcus had posted the nanny position on a Thursday evening after his previous arrangement fell through. And Claire Osai had applied the following Monday with a CV that was 2 pages long and a cover letter that was 4 paragraphs of precise, undecorated language about what she understood early childhood development to require. She was 32 at the time. She held a degree in early childhood education and was working toward a second qualification in developmental psychology part-time, 3 nights a week. She was saving to open her own childcare center, which she had been planning in composition notebooks for 3 years. Route maps, projected costs, curriculum frameworks, staffing models. She treated the notebooks the way she treated everything in her life, with the clarity of a person who understood that good work requires accurate records. Marcus had interviewed her for 40 minutes and hired her that evening. She had been, for 2 years, the most reliable person in his house. Not reliable in the performed way, the way people are reliable when they believe someone is measuring. Reliable the way a well-built structure is reliable, quietly, consistently, without requiring the credit for it. She knew Lily's reading level, her anxieties, her specific sensitivities to noise and change, and the way transitions needed to be handled. She knew which days Lily needed more time in the morning, and which days she moved quickly. She left notes for Marcus, not long, just precise. Lily had a hard afternoon. She'll want to talk about the dog we saw at the park. The kind of notes that took 2 minutes to write and changed everything about how a father walked through his front door. What Marcus had noticed and had not let himself examine too directly was the ease of the house when Claire was in it, not her labor, though her labor was exact and reliable. The ease. The quality of a space that was being attended to by someone who meant what they were doing. It was different from every other quality in his marriage, and the difference had become sharper over the previous year as Vanessa withdrew more completely into the social infrastructure she had been building. The dinners, the events, the phone held at an angle he was not supposed to notice, the weekends that had explanations he was supposed to accept without examination. He had accepted them. He measured twice before committing to anything, but he also believed, he had always believed, that the people he chose deserved the benefit of the doubt, until the evidence made doubt the only reasonable position. He had been extending that benefit for longer than the evidence justified. He knew it. He had been waiting for clarity before he acted on what he knew. One evening in March, he had come home late from a project site and found the house quiet. Lily asleep on the living room couch with a blanket over her, Vanessa out, the kitchen clean, and Claire at the kitchen table with her coursework spread out and a cup of tea going cold beside her. He had made a second cup and sat across from her, and they had talked for almost an hour about the childcare center she was building toward, about the specific problem she was solving in her curriculum framework, about Lily's progress. At some point he had realized that he was talking the way he talked at work, directly, without managing the conversation toward an outcome, without performing anything. He had not talked that way in his own house for a long time. He had noticed it. He had not done anything with the noticing except file it away carefully, the way he filed things he intended to understand. That had been what Vanessa had not been able to stand. Not anything that had been done. The quality of what had not. He called Claire 2 days after she left. He said he wanted to apologize for what had happened. She said the apology wasn't necessary. He said he needed to understand what had been going on in the house. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There are some things I wrote down. I didn't write them down for any particular reason. I just noticed things and I wrote them down the way I write everything." He said, "Will you meet with me?" She met him at a coffee shop near the firm, on a Tuesday morning, with a notebook he recognized, spiral bound, black cover, the same kind she carried for her coursework. She set it on the table. She opened it to the first entry. The first entry was dated 8 months earlier. Date, time, a description, a contractor van, white Ford Transit, parked in driveway, from 9:14 a.m. to 11:47 a.m. No visible work done outside or inside the house. Below it, the van's plate number, written in the even, legible hand she used for everything. She turned the page. A second entry. A third. 14 total across 8 months. Always Tuesday mornings. Always the same van. Always the same plate. She had noted each time what was visible. No equipment brought in. No work product visible afterward. No invoice appearing in the household correspondence she processed for the mail. She had noted, twice, a specific credit card charge in the household account that appeared on the same date as a visit. She had not written what she thought was happening. She had written what she observed. That was all. She said, "I don't know what this is. I just knew it was something I should have written down." Marcus looked at the notebook for a long moment. He did not say what he was thinking. He said, "Can I keep this?" "I made a copy," she said. He called his attorney that afternoon. Diana Crawford, methodical, precise, never added drama to information that didn't need any, had been his business counsel for 7 years. He described what he had. She said, "Get me the credit card records and the household bank statements for the past 12 months. I'll have something for you by the end of the week." She had something by Thursday. The van belonged to a company called Croft Interiors and Design. The owner of record was a man named Bradley Croft. Diana placed his business registration on the table. Licensed contractor. Residential renovation. Registered in Virginia. 3 years old. She placed a second document beside it. An LLC registration from the previous year. The LLC was called Waverly Home Partners. Its 2 registered members were Bradley Croft and Vanessa Wade. She had not taken Marcus's last name professionally. Diana placed a third document on the table. Bank records. Over 8 months, $340,000 had moved out of the joint household account through 11 separate transfers to Croft Interiors and Design, each one coded as a home renovation expense. each one corresponding to a date when Claire's notebook showed a van in the driveway and no work done. The money had not stayed at Croft Interiors. Diana traced it 2 steps further, into Waverly Home Partners, and from there into a brokerage account in Vanessa's name. A 4th document. Vanessa had consulted a divorce attorney 11 months ago. A firm in Washington, 2 appointments. A retainer payment in the amount of $4,500 charged to a credit card in her name that did not appear in the household accounts. 11 months. 4 months before the first fake renovation charge. Marcus looked at everything on the table. The notebook, the van records, the LLC, the transfers, the premeditation. He looked at it the way he looked at a complete set of structural drawings, not at any single element, but at the load paths, the connections, the places where the design had been built to fail at a specific moment and in a specific direction. He could see the whole shape of it. He could see what the Tuesday mornings were. He could see what the $340,000 was. A pre-divorce asset transfer, structured to look like contractor payments, and therefore invisible in a standard marital asset review. He could see what Vanessa had believed, that by the time the divorce was filed, the money would be too far downstream to trace cleanly, and she would walk away from the marriage with the financial position she had spent a year building. He could see why Claire had been fired. Not because of anything trivial. Because Vanessa had understood, on some level, that Claire's habit of writing things down was a problem she could not control. She had not known what was in the notebook. She had simply understood that a person of that kind of precision was not safe to have nearby. He set the records down. He picked up his coffee. He thought about the notebook on Claire's kitchen table. 14 entries. None of them labeled as anything except what they were. She fired the witness, he said. Diana looked at him. She did. She forgot she'd already written it down. Diana said nothing. She refilled his coffee. He didn't move fast. He said nothing to Vanessa. He continued his routines, the early mornings at the office, the site visits, dinner on the evenings he was home, the household rhythms that had become so managed and careful that they barely required his presence at all. He did not alter anything that would signal to Vanessa that the picture had changed. He worked with Diana over the following 2 weeks. The $340,000 transfers were entered into a formal forensic accounting review. The LLC structure was documented. The divorce attorney appointment was located in the financial records. The premeditation timeline was assembled into a single document that started 11 months ago and ended with the morning Claire walked out of the house carrying her bag. That document was 12 pages. Every page was dated. Every amount was exact. He protected Lily's assets, a trust Marcus had established for her at birth, structured separately from the marital estate, confirmed intact. He arranged temporary accommodations so that the transition, when it came, would require no movement on Lily's part. He confirmed with his firm's HR that his compensation structure for the past 4 years was documented correctly for the asset review. He thought, more than once, about Claire's notebook. About the quality of attention that produces 14 entries of precisely observed fact across 8 months. Written not to be used, but simply because that is how that kind of person moves through the world. He thought about the Tuesday evening in March, the kitchen table, the coursework, the second cup of tea, the conversation that cost nothing and gave something back that he had not known he was missing. He thought about what his marriage had looked like from the outside of itself, and what it had looked like from the inside of it, and how large the distance between those two views had grown. He did not contact Claire during this period. He understood the sequence. Foundation first. Then walls. You do not move toward the thing you want to build until the ground it will stand on is clear and level, and you know it is yours. Vanessa filed the divorce petition on a Thursday morning in May. Her attorney had prepared for a standard 50-50 division of marital assets accumulated during the marriage. She was expecting the process to move in a direction she had already planned for. Diana called Marcus at 6:15 that morning. "She filed," she said. "We're ready." He said, "I know." Marcus arrived at the mediation office 20 minutes before anyone else. He liked it that way. The conference room was on the 8th floor, neutral colors, long table, a window that faced a parking structure rather than the city. The specific functional coldness of a room designed to produce resolution rather than comfort. He sat at one end. Diana arrived at 9:40 with her associate. They arranged their documents without ceremony. Marcus had brought 2 folders. Vanessa arrived at 10 with her attorney, a well-prepared man named Christopher who had positioned this mediation as a straightforward asset division and had not yet received the documentation Diana had filed with the court secretary that morning. He was adjusting to its existence in real time. The opening formalities were brief. Christopher began with a framing statement about the equitable division of marital assets. He was precise and confident in the way of someone who believes the room has been built to his specifications. Diana set the first document in the center of the table. The forensic accounting summary. 11 transfers. $340,000. Croft Interiors and Design. Each amount exact, each date corresponding to an entry in a notebook Diana had already entered into the court record. The second document, Waverly Home Partners, LLC. Registration, members, the money's path from the household account to the contractor to the LLC to the brokerage account. Clear, documented, complete. The third document, the divorce attorney retainer payment. 11 months ago, the premeditation timeline assembled into 12 pages, starting 4 months before the first fraudulent transfer. Diana walked through each document in the same voice she used for all information that did not require decoration, level, factual, at the pace that allowed everyone to follow without being rushed. She named each amount. She named each date. She named the LLC. She named the account. She did not look at Vanessa while she spoke. Christopher had stopped writing 3 pages into the forensic summary. He leaned toward Vanessa and spoke low. Vanessa's expression had gone through several things and arrived at something controlled and careful. The specific stillness of a person who has discovered that the room was not built the way they believed. The silence after Diana finished lasted 9 seconds. Marcus counted them. Christopher said they would need a recess. "Of course," Diana said. Marcus stood. He gathered his folders. He shook Diana's hand. He walked toward the door. He stopped. He turned to Vanessa. He said it the way he said things he had thought about for a long time, and was now simply saying, "You fired her because she was watching." A pause. She was. 8 months of Tuesdays, every one of them dated. He held her eyes for a moment. "You gave her 8 months." He walked out without looking back. It did not happen all at once. The forensic accounting review took 9 weeks to complete formally, but its conclusions were not in significant dispute after the first week. The $340,000 in fraudulent transfers was classified as dissipation of marital assets and excluded from the equitable division calculation, which meant it was credited to Vanessa as assets already received. What remained to be divided was considerably less than Christopher had prepared to negotiate over. The house went to Marcus, who had purchased it before the marriage using premarital funds that were clearly documented. Vanessa's share of the marital estate was settled at a number her attorney had not expected to be negotiating from. Bradley Croft's company lost 2 contracts in the months following the mediation, connections that had come through Marcus's firm, without Marcus ever having to say anything directly. The LC dissolved. Bradley moved to a smaller office. The relationship with Vanessa, which had been the point of the whole architecture, did not survive the pressure of its own exposure. She called Marcus once, 6 weeks after the settlement, and said she was sorry. He listened. He said, "I know." He ended the call. She was not destroyed. She was simply returned to the size of the life her choices had built, without the structure of Marcus's world to stand on. She was carrying the weight of what she had chosen, the way a person carries something they cannot put down. Not dramatically, just constantly. Marcus had 31 employees now. A 32nd was starting in September. He answered every call the same day. He gave accurate timelines and hit them. His name was on the buildings. Lily started 2nd grade in September and told her teacher, at the introduction circle, that her father designed buildings that were supposed to last forever. The teacher had asked what that meant. Lily had said, "He measures everything twice." Claire's child care center opened the following April. It was small, 6 staff, 24 children. A building in Northeast Washington that she had been planning in composition notebooks for 4 years. The curriculum framework was the same one she had been revising on the kitchen table at Marcus's house on the evenings she worked late. Marcus had reviewed the structural plans for the renovation pro bono. He had made 4 written comments. The comments were precise and useful and arrived, as all his communications did, without unnecessary context. She had sent him a card when the center opened. 2 sentences. He kept it in his desk drawer. On a Saturday morning in October, Marcus Wade stood on the 3rd floor of a building under construction in Georgetown. Steel frame, concrete floors, the city visible through the open sides where the glass was scheduled to go in the following week. He was reviewing the structural survey with his site foreman, a man named Roy, who had been on his crews for 9 years and trusted his own instincts only slightly less than he trusted Marcus's. Lily was with them. She did this sometimes now, came to sites on weekend mornings, wore a hard hat that was too large for her, asked questions that Roy answered with complete seriousness. Claire arrived at 10:30. She had brought coffee and a bag from the bakery on Wisconsin, and she navigated the site in the flat-soled shoes she always wore with the practical ease of someone who paid attention to where she was putting her feet. Lily heard her on the stairs and moved toward the sound without looking, the way a person moves toward something they know in the specific way of things that do not require them to think about it. Marcus watched them from across the floor. Claire was crouching to Lily's level now, listening to something Lily was explaining about the view from the east side, her head tilted in the way it tilted when she was genuinely interested, not managing an interaction but actually inside it. The light was coming through the open west wall, flat and clear, the kind of October light that makes everything precise. He stood with the survey in his hand and watched for a moment. Then he rolled the survey under his arm. He walked toward them. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.